Elevation Nation. We have an incredible guest for you today. In fact, we are honored that she is not falling asleep or too exhausted to hang out with us because she's had a hell of a week and it's still going. Fresh from Art Basel, we have Emilie Sobel, an incredible human being that I'm just excited to get to know a little bit better with her story. We have a Savannah connection, which never happens. So Emilie went to SCAD down in Savannah. My parents are obviously down there now, so we hit it off immediately. We have so many mutual friends in Elevation Nation that it was only a matter of time before we had you on the podcast. So Emilie, welcome to Elevation Nation.
Thank you. What an introduction. I love it. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. To be honest, Emily, you're gonna have to explain like Art Basel, Art Basel to me. Like I just don't get it. Like what's the purpose of it? Why do people go? What's the craze about?
Oh, okay. I'm happy to explain. So, Art Basel originated in Basel, Switzerland, hence the Art Basel. It is actually the whole point of it is for art collectors to be able to come and experience art, meet artists, talk to galleries, and buy art. And of course, in true Miami fashion over the years, it has escalated into like not just about the art. I feel like people who come for Art Basel barely even see art anymore, not including me. I'm here for the art very much. But it all started because it's an art collecting fair. I've been doing it since I think I was like 14 because my mom also like loves this world. But it stems from the Art Basel fair that takes place at our convention center. And then throughout the years, and because it's the best time of year here in Miami, obviously it has turned into events and parties and influencer stuff and late nights. But it's amazing because now we have the Art Basel Fair, but there's other fairs that have like sprouted around it, like Scope Art Fair, Untitled, which are like giant tents filled with art that are on the beach. So you like literally walk on the sand, you look at the ocean, and you just like walk around and see a bunch of art. And there's all different types of art. My favorite ones are the contemporary fairs, but Design Miami is home to like furniture and interior design, where SCAD has a booth. So like this year they had it was all they had like furniture and lamps and paintings, and one of the chairs were by a friend of mine that I graduated SCAD with. So it's really cool because it's like the art world takes Miami, but in true Miami fashion it just stems into a million other things. So it kind of meets everything that I like to do as far as art, networking, partying, food, all of that. So our Basel is really crazy. If you saw my Instagram, it kind of doesn't really make sense, but it also does because every brand, every PR firm, every influencer, celebrity just flies into town to be a part of the action in whatever way that may be.
So
You just
like you
made
had a
Parker
full
so much cooler,
schedule.
by the way, for explaining that to him. Now you're hip,
Yeah.
Parker.
And it's Art
I
Basel,
mean
not
like
Basil. People will make fun
Art
of you and
Basel.
rip you to
Okay.
shreds if you say Basil. Basel, like Basel, Switzerland.
Okay. So Art Basel, the haters out there, what's up?
God.
Okay, so Emily, you had a full week of things and parties and people, I'm sure meetings. How was it for you, as an entrepreneur yourself? What does a week like that look like for you?
It's very, very chaotic, but luckily I thrive off of the chaos. For me, it's the focus is on seeing art, networking, and then also hosting client events and making sure and working as an influencer as well. So like it's a nice mix between paid partnership, paid consulting gigs where I hosted three different events for three different clients this week. And then also just like making time to go walk around the art fairs, connecting with artists that I love or discovering new ones, getting that content and making sure that like I'm aligned with it. And then going to a lot of events with potential brand partners and clients for next year. So seated dinners, late night parties, every major credit card, every major airline, and every major like spirit and wine brand is here. So I went to a seated dinner with Villeroy and Boch, which is dinnerware that you probably aren't familiar with, but I am because my mom, it's a 276-year-old dinnerware brand from Germany. And this was the
Wow.
first time they activated at Basel by essentially hosting a dinner with their Miami collection, which makes so much sense because it's art, food, play, whatever. And then I don't even know. I went Chase Sapphire sponsored Scope Art Fair, which is one of my favorite tents. It's a contemporary art fair, and they build this like huge lounge setup with a stage. So it was like art fair by day, party at night, and we saw Disclosure, Black Coffee. It's really, 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 really cool, and it's all walking and biking distance from my apartment. So Basel's notoriously known for like the traffic, but I've kind of hacked it where like I get on a city bike in my heels and leather pants at 2 in the morning to get home, or I just like avoid going over the bridge to Wynwood altogether. You have to be really strategic, but it's really, really good for my business because I just set myself up for the year and make a lot of contacts. Today was like a full on admin day where I sat in my pajamas and like answered emails and sent thank yous to all of the brands that invited me to their parties and clients that let me host their events. So it's a whole lot of chaos, but in a really fun way. I think it's all about perspective. People like to get stressed over it. I'm more of like, this is really cool. This is kind of why I live in Miami. It's what stemmed my interest in this world from a very young age. And it's just really nice to like see my school, see clients, see artists, all of that.
It literally is the perfect time to talk to you because I think, Emily, when we first chatted, one of the reasons why I loved you so much is because you have a very similar mindset to Parker and myself, which is we do a lot of things and we love a lot
Yeah.
of things and we're passionate about all different types of stuff. And so I feel like Art Basel is that kind of embodied perfectly for you and your brand and your company and your entrepreneurial spirit. Can we maybe take a step back and, you took a leap of faith, started your own endeavor, and now are doing so many different things. Could you maybe summarize a bit of what you're building with your company? And I think it kind of just spells out what you did this weekend, essentially.
Yeah, so basically, I own a marketing agency. I run it by myself. I'm very much a controlled freak, and I was at a social media agency for 6 years. I did a little bit of consulting during COVID, and I've always like had side hustles of my own, whether that was having a fashion blog in college, which turned into the whole social media thing, to having side clients when I was working in an agency because I was never making enough money. Like it's just never enough for me. So my big, like my bread and butter and the thing that gets me out of bed and makes me excited is I do a lot of event consulting for clients. So I'll work with brands that are not necessarily familiar with Miami and they'll hire me to be their like right hand man and tell them this is where we're having the party, this is who we're inviting, this is who we're getting involved, this is when, where, whatever we're doing it. Just because I'm born and raised here and because Miami has become such a hot spot over the last 5 years, I've kind of used that to my advantage where I'm like, look, like I am born and raised Miami Beach. I'm a 32-year-old millennial living here in the scene. So let me like guide you through it. And then I do a lot of influencer work. So I myself work as an influencer as a side hustle because it's never enough. And it also like feeds like the little creative thing that I need to fill in my life. But it also helps me with the networking of it all. So the real reason why I love the influencer and social media world is because as an influencer myself, I get invited to these events where I get FaceTime with the PR teams and the real brand founders, designers, whoever that may be, while also networking with other creators and influencers in the city so that I can take mental notes and then add them to my media list so that when clients hire me to host events, I know exactly who should be invited, maybe who isn't so influential, whatever that may be. And then it also opens up the doors where people who have hired me as an influencer in turn hire me to consult for them in the long term. So as an example, Citizen M Hotels, it's an incredible hotel brand based out of Europe. They have opened 3 properties in Miami over the last 3 years. They initially hired me as one of their Miami citizens. I remain a Miami citizen, but I've become really close with the team because they're all just people like us trying to do their jobs as well as possible. And they're based out of Amsterdam. So, like, what do they actually know about Miami? So, this year, they hired me to help with their invite list, to show up to their event, to shoot content, and it's a really cool full circle moment and like exactly what I do and what I want to be doing. And yeah, I do a little bit of social media on the side too, just because like that's who I am. I've been in it since it came out. So I have some clients where I help with their social strategy and marketing. I help with their content creators and their content calendars. So essentially anything under the digital marketing umbrella with like those 3 very specific niches.
It sounds like you're always busy with something going on. I mean, whether it's during the work week or even the work weekend in your case, it sounds like. I mean, I always thought about, Sam and I we've interviewed many influencers, and like there's really no off day. It's like you're got to produce content. You always got to put out things, whether it's creative or not, or you're shooting all the time. I'm just like, how do they do it? How are you doing this?
I have like learned it's hard. It's like a running joke. My dad's always like, "Are you actually taking a weekend, or do you have events? Like, do you have to do stuff? As I've gotten older, I've learned how to set better boundaries. I turn my phone on do not disturb after 6 o'clock after the workday. I just think that's really important. I try not to like focus on my screen time and be off of social media as much as possible. I also try to say no to things Monday, Tuesday, and sometimes Wednesday, depending on like the time of year. I just think like, why do I need to be going out on a Monday night? Like, it's just not necessary. And I don't really drink. So like for me to go to these cocktail parties, unless there's a paycheck or like a good business opportunity involved, I don't need to do that anymore. But with that said, this comes with like 15 years of experience and like putting myself out there. In my early 20s, when I first moved back to Miami and I was trying to make a name for myself, and really before I knew what I was going to be doing right now, I would go to the opening of an envelope because I was young enough that I had the energy for it. I didn't really have like responsibilities as someone to come home to or a business to run. So I would say yes to everything and just really put myself out there and like get, I like to say see and be seen. So like I would show up to a party, shake hands with who I need to shake hands with, get my picture taken, and then go home. Nowadays, I get to be a little more selective, but that's come with like years and years and years of work. So I don't know. I feel like I'm always busy, but I have started to like say no to certain things and really be specific and intentional with what I'm doing nowadays. So it's funny because people think I am always doing things, but most of the time I have like saved content and like I'll lay in bed and post it on a Monday night so that people probably think I'm out, but I'm not actually. I have like on my daily to-do list for work, I also include like the content stuff that's like pending. So like I'm going to post a dinner tomorrow night that I went to a month ago just because I haven't had time to sit down and edit it when no one really knows I'm just at home hanging out.
Yeah, it always works that way. Well,
Yeah.
I asked the question because I'm like curious. Sam and I, with Elevation Nation, we are always fascinated by what fuels these elevators, these people who are going after their dreams. And so I'm just like trying to make sense of like, what is that thing that fuels you, gets you fired up to do all this and make it happen?
Honestly, like FOMO and a paycheck, if I'm being completely
Okay,
transparent.
I mean,
I'm very
honesty's
much in my
good.
hustle era. Yeah, like I'm trying to like save money and build a really good life for myself. I have a certain kind of taste nowadays because I've through work I've gotten a taste of really nice luxury. Like I got to go on a trip with Rosewood Bahamas. I'm like, okay, well, this is the type of hotel I want to stay at. So I'm very much in hustle mode that like if I see a business opportunity there, I think it's worth it. But I also have I have FOMO and I thought I would like outgrow it at some point, but like even this weekend, I'm like, I like yesterday, I was like, I was so tired. I was running on fumes, but I had yet to like walk around the scope tent because I had gone earlier in the week for the VIP preview and I ran into people and I was like, I have to go see art for an hour. So those are the two things that fuel me. And also like, I love what I do. This is really fun. I feel really privileged to live in Miami and get to do this and be in rooms with certain people that I've like looked up to forever. So I try to focus on that. And then the second it stops being fun is when I'm not going to do it anymore or when I'm going to say no to things. But it's really nice. Like I look forward to it. And like I know it seems crazy, but it's only a week of the year. So like this week moving into the new year, it's going to be quiet. It's holiday season. So like when you think about it in perspective, like it's only 7 days of the year. I'll miss it once it's over and I can rest for a little. So I know it seems psychotic, but like it's all balance.
No, I think many of the elevators in Elevation Nation share that same, some people call it FOMO. I like to say, is it a blessing or a curse, that constant need
Yeah.
to be doing more?
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are cool, like chilling and
Yeah.
being
I
content.
get
There's always something
I go
else.
crazy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's hard. Well, I want to kind of throw it back. So Parker talked a little bit about fuel. I want to talk about something else that we love at Elevation Nation, which is your vision, right? And I want to ask you, Emily, when you were down in Savannah at SCAD figuring out what was going on, was this the vision that you had in your mind? And is this kind of a manifestation of you thinking that this is what you wanted and now you're living this dream life? Or did you really just kind of stumble into this and you're figuring out on the fly?
It's so funny you ask that because I think about this all the time. And as I've like gotten more and more into my career, I see like how I set myself up for success without really realizing. And it kind of
Mm,
starts before Savannah. I have always been an art kid. Like I always knew that I was going to do something creative. But obviously, when I was growing up, social media wasn't a thing. Instagram came out when I was a sophomore in college. So this all stemmed from being a fashion blogger on like a Weebly.com account where I would like take pictures on my BlackBerry and post them. But I've always been creative. My parents have always like focused more on the art than the academics, which obviously set me up for success. But I had always wanted to like work as like a market editor or a beauty editor at magazines, which like kind of is adjacent to what influencers are now as far as like reviewing products and sharing them with their communities and getting gifted a ton of things. I made the decision not to pursue that career after an internship in New York. I interned at 17 in Harper's Bazaar and I loved them both so much. But when I was at Harper's Bazaar, I kind of like had a come to Jesus moment where I was like, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? Do I want to live in New York City making not that much money, having roommates, being cold, just like hustling all the time for like something that isn't mine? Or should I go back to Miami and like look into social media because social media was then becoming a thing? So looking back, I don't think I knew what I was going to be doing, but it kind of makes sense that I fell into this. To give you a perfect example and like spilling a very big secret, my legal name is Emily. In high school, when I was 16, like something just like triggered me to like change my Facebook name to Emilie. I must have like seen it in a magazine or something, but I was like, that's such a cool way to spell it. Like I feel like that's who I am. And from that moment on, I ended up branding myself as Emily with an IE. I was 15, 16 before social media,
wow.
anything. And it's just kind of stuck. And now looking back, I'm like, holy shit, I fully had a brand in mind without realizing this is what I was going to do. So now 15 years later, I'm like, oh my God, I definitely knew I was going to be here. I just didn't know because it wasn't a career. And as I like went through school and took different classes and realized what I wanted to be doing, and when social media came out, it was kind of just like a natural, like obviously I have to go and do this. I remember my mom took me to Vegas as a graduation present to see Britney Spears live front row in her residency. And
No
she
way.
gave me the summer to like apply for jobs. And she was like, after Vegas, you're going to have to make a decision on what you want to do. And we were in Vegas in our hotel room. I was 22 and I got an email from my would be boss offering me a job at the first social media agency I interviewed at. And I stayed there for 6 years. So it's really crazy how life works out and how crazy like younger me knew that this is what I was going to be doing without having any idea that this is what I was going to be doing, if that makes sense.
It's incredible, I think, how our vision maybe isn't even something we solidified, but our mind or the universe just works in mysterious
Yeah.
ways that somehow work out for us. And I think Parker and I have taken such a similar mindset to Elevation Nation, right? Like interview and talk to as many amazing people as we can, not worry about the money or the fame or whatever will
Yeah.
potentially come with this, but how can we just meet really cool people, learn from them, connect them together, and see what happens? And so for us as well, it's been crazy to see our vision shift and ebb and flow with now us speaking around the country and doing some really cool things. It's just been great. And so I love that you didn't necessarily say this is exactly what I wanted, because I think for many of our listeners who are in high school and college, they think that they have to pick that one thing and then just go
Hmm.
as hard as they can to be the best at it. And I think, while yes, of course, there's obviously some purpose behind working really hard at one thing if you know that's what you want to do. I also think it's super advantageous, especially for young people in their 20s, to be open minded with the opportunities that they might not even know exist yet.
Hmm.
Like, if not, you would still be editing magazines and thinking, like, well, this is the closest I can get to fashion. So I might as well
Yeah.
stay here, instead of realizing there are other opportunities for you to do what you love in an even more incredible way.
I want to
And
add one
I
more thing
completely,
too. It sounds like Emily, like the way you just talked us through that whole story, being in Vegas to now where you're at now is like you didn't necessarily know what was going to happen tomorrow. None of us will ever know what's going to happen tomorrow because the only thing that we get to know is today. And it sounds like you've had confidence in who you are and what your skill set is, that the tomorrow that you wanted in your life would eventually come. And so now you're sitting here, 32 years old, looking back after an incredible week in Miami at Art Basel. There you go. And, like, I'm sure the 22-year-old you'd be like, holy shit, how did you get here? That's amazing. It just sounds trust the process in a sense.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a very much day by day person. My dad like always told me, man plans, God laughs. So like whatever you think is going to happen, it's probably not going to happen, and you have to be prepared for that. I think like if I learned anything in my life, like you just got to trust the process, like you said, and just like not sweat the small stuff. You only have so much control over like what you're doing. And for the college kids and the people in high school that are listening to this, get the experience, try every single thing you want to do. I was privileged enough to be able to do that with my parents' support. They sent me to New York to work as an intern for free before it was illegal to not pay interns. Like when I was in the magazine world, it was the free internships where we were there till 10 o'clock at night. I realized that I was very, very, very lucky to have parents who like paid my way through New York City. With that said, I did work through college to like kind of keep myself going, but I recognize the privilege that I had. But being able to experience everything that you think you want to do and like not putting the pressure of like, I chose this as my college major, so this is what I have to do with the rest of my life. The beauty of like the world and the industry that we're in is like we have access to so many things, and your college degree, while it means something, it doesn't mean anything. Like I have a fashion marketing degree. Ask me how many people have asked me for my degree throughout all my job interviews. And like, if I'm actually doing fashion marketing, like I would probably go with a different major if I went back to school right now, but it did like teach me how to run a business and to think like a marketer. And while I may not be in the fashion world, like right now, what I do is kind of adjacent to it. And now I work with fashion clients, and I just learned how to like, I guess, nurture my creativity and find a way to make money with it, while also knowing that like everything's going to work out. Like you really can't like be mad at yourself if what you thought you were going to do isn't what you're going to do. I think I had a really early, I knew who I was at an early age, but I also didn't. So like I think about this all the time, like 22-year-old me would be so proud of me. Even this past Art Basel, like I try to be very present and very grateful for what's going on, because I have worked my ass off for this. And like, I'm not curing cancer. Like at the end of the day, yes, it's work, but like it's all good. Like this is so much fun. Like I get to go to these parties and see disclosure with clients, but like it's also not the end of the world if I don't. And next year will hopefully and probably be better. So yeah, I try to stay very grateful and present throughout all of this, and definitely recognize that 22-year-old me would be very proud regardless of how much money I'm making, what parties I get invited to, whatever that may be.
You essentially were able to dream up your life a little bit, right? And to your point, you can only make a plan for so many things, but it sounds like you're able to now at 32 hit so many different buckets of the things that you're interested in. And this is why I love entrepreneurship. And for me and Parker, being in the podcast and public speaking space is like, that's our jam. We get to do, Parker gets to do his creative social media thing that I don't touch because I will ruin it. And we get to go speak, and that's our favorite thing to do. And we get to connect people, which is even more fun when we get to introduce two humans together and they do something incredible. And so for us, we found that balance. For you, it sounds like you found this perfect balance. But now I have maybe a more difficult question, which is now at 32, Emilie, let's look ahead to the next 10 years. Do you have a vision of what you want, or are you kind of hitting everything that you want now? And the reason I ask this, and I'll just say this quick anecdote, I'm going to turn 30 next year. And I've been having a lot of moments where I've been getting very big into manifestation and spirituality. We can talk about that another time. But I've realized that so many of the things that I want, I already have if I just like stopped and appreciated them. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in this weird spot where it's like, I don't know if I actually want anything besides to just enjoy this next year. Like I'm just going to love everything that I have right now. And so I'm curious for you, you're doing incredible things. Is it almost a little bit of like, I just kind of don't want this roller coaster to end yet?
That's such a hard question. I hate when people ask me, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because,
Yeah.
like I said, like, whatever I see is probably not going to happen. I it's so funny because like 5 years ago, like I don't even think like we knew TikTok was going to be this way.
Yeah.
So
True.
for me, like my next career goal and like what I see myself doing, and transparently, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. It's just something that's in my head, and I think everything we want manifests in some way or another. Um, I would love to have like my own brand, like a consumer brand, whether it's like like a product, a makeup line, or, like maybe I'll end up writing a book or something. I don't know. These are all things that I have always like floated around in my head. My biggest issue is time. Like I still think my social life and my travel life is important. So any like free time I have, I don't want to dedicate to more work because I'm really happy and proud of myself for where I am. And like, I'm not someone who's like, I'm not making enough money. I'm more of like, cool, like I can afford to live my life and do the things I want to do. So like, let me go on vacation versus trying to find something more to add to my plate. That may change. I just would like something a little more substantial so that I don't have to be online all the time, or like feel bad if I'm not going to be in town for a Basel one year. That's something like I think about, probably won't happen for another few years, but it's definitely something like in my head. It's like really like if I can find someone like the right partner to help me execute it, because I don't even know where I would start. But yeah, I feel like entrepreneurs are always thinking about like the next thing and how to like continue making money, whether like we care about it or not. Like at the end of the day, it's business. Like I always want to continue to live like my best life, and my best life includes nice vacations and good shopping and nice food, and that's just who I am. I can't help it.
So I love that Sam went a little bit more difficult on the question, but I'm going to challenge you even more. We're going to go even more difficult or challenging. I don't think it's difficult. I think it's actually better quality content. So Emily, entrepreneurship is very sexy on paper. When you look at it in social media, it looks great. Wow, that person's building a company of their dreams. They're living the life they want to live, right? Like we all know that is just not the case, right? People are putting out all the good, all the highs, maybe some of the lows. But I'm curious,
Yeah.
looking back maybe on the last year, could you walk us through like a challenge or something that was really difficult for you as an entrepreneur? And I'm really curious, like how you approach that to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the fact that like clients are kind of like it's up to me to keep them, and like they can come and go is something I've always struggled with, especially because like you only have so much control over that. No matter how good of a job you do, sometimes they just can't afford you anymore. They're not prioritizing whatever you're doing. So that's something that I've had to like set ego aside and just understand that's how business works. And then also like comparing myself to other people my age or in this industry that maybe are doing quote unquote better, or it looks like they're doing better things, bigger things, getting more clients, hosting more events, whatever that may be. But and it's so cheesy, but like I have to remind myself that comparison is the thief of joy, and like
Yeah.
everything you see online via email, whatever that may be, is very strategically curated, including my page. And I posted on, it was like Thursday or Friday. It looks like I had the best week ever, but there were a few mental breakdowns in there because on the way to an event, after sitting in an hour in traffic, I went to park and ran over a glass bottle and popped the tire on my brand new car that's not even a month old. And I was like in
Jeez.
the middle of Wynwood and like not so good part, running late to this, already exhausted. And then it turns out these two graffiti artists ended up coming and helping change my spare tire. And it was a very much like I got very lucky in this situation. Like it's all good. It wasn't at night. I can fix it. It's no big deal. But like I had to take a second and I was like, I think I need to go home and just like lay down before I like freak out and just put everything into perspective and realize how lucky I got. So I don't know. I definitely challenge myself with like trying not to compare myself with everything else, because what I do, there is a lot of like, like I didn't get hired by a brand that hired me the last 2 years for Basel. And I was like, what did I do wrong? And they ended up hiring like bigger quote unquote celebrity creators to work with them. And like, that's fine. Like that is what it is. Maybe they got a bigger budget and wanted a bit bigger reach. That has nothing to do with what I've done for them in the past. And I really had to like sit down and remind myself that it's okay, and like obviously brands aren't going to want to be repeating what they're doing every year. Like they're going to have to pivot just like I would with my clients. So yeah, it's a lot of internal struggles. And I just try to, like I said, like I just try to remember everything I have and all the opportunities I got. And not everything is for everyone, and that's okay.
I was gonna say, I know Sam wants to chime in, but I bought the Rick Rubin book. I forget what it's
Oh,
called. It's really really good. He's a music producer. If you don't know, pretty famous. But he wrote a book of just like knowledge, and he says being an artist is you're not trying to create for someone else. You never want to actually create for someone else, right? You're creating for you. And it's not up to you then when you show the world to determine how they're going to react to it. And I've
yeah.
taken that approach to business, to my own art and creation, right? I'm a podcaster. Sometimes I like to also do a little TikTok. Sam likes to hear me maybe make some music sometimes. Who knows? Singing. I don't know. Right? Like there's so many different ways we create art, whether that's through business, through actual art, through family, whatever. But it's not up to me once I put it out into the world to determine if it was good or bad. It's up to the
Yeah.
world to determine that and if it resonates with them. And like I look back to your point where you said, there was a client that didn't bring you back, right? Okay. But maybe it wasn't for them or for you, but you're going to bring your best self every day. The art you're putting out into the world, what you produce is amazing or great, and it aligns with who you are. And I think the more we align with who we are, the more amazing things to come. And
Yeah, I
so
agree.
that resonated so well with me.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think it's just important to like remember, like if you're proud of what you're doing, that's all that matters. Like the
Yeah.
recognition, like it's all relative, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard when we have this community of incredible entrepreneurs, right? Like such a blessing and a curse that Parker and I get to
Yeah.
interview someone like you, Emily, but then I'm like, shit, Emily's working with some dope brands. Like I didn't get invited to Art Basel. What are we doing? Parker, why are we not the podcast of Art Basel, right? Like, and you see all these amazing friends that you've then made. And I have to remind myself, especially in Elevation Nation with our incredible network now, it's like, the friends that I've made through this podcast is because they're already super successful. Like that is not the norm. And everyone is not
Yeah.
doing all these amazing things and content creators and building companies and have a little bit of grace. And I think then I go back to some of the compliments that we receive where people are like, you guys are running this, podcast full time, right? Like you guys are paying your bills with this. And Parker and I are like, no, man, this is on the side. And so just reminding us that everyone's at a different stage on their journey and to not compare ourselves is so much easier said than done. But I
Yeah.
am glad that you also feel that same way. There's always someone a little bit better and more successful than us that we tend to compare ourselves to and check how they're doing. And so no matter who you are, Elevation Nation out there listening, comparing yourself to, whether that's an older sibling or a friend that maybe has the dream job that you want, have a little bit of grace with yourself. Everyone is on a different timeline, and sometimes you just got to trust the process a little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why
I think that's life.
introspection's so important.
Yeah.
Like knowing
Yeah.
who you are. Like it doesn't it doesn't fucking
It doesn't
I rarely say
matter.
fuck on the podcast, but it doesn't fucking matter what other people want because they're not
Yeah.
living your life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you. You have to
And we
learn
all
that.
have our shit going on. So I think like
Yeah.
just like humanizing everything and just knowing like we're all out here
Yeah.
just like trying to exist and survive. And like just because you didn't do our Basel this year, like there's always next year. It's fine.
We
People
will be
forget
the
about our
podcast sponsor
yeah.
next year.
A
I have no
hundred
doubt.
percent. You just
That's a hefty
manifested that.
goal
The
right
second
there.
you put that
Parker,
out
you need to
there.
pronounce it right. If we're going to get the damn deal, bro, you have to at least say the name right. So,
Well, I think
Well,
at the
I was
on
very
your
least
actually at
pronunciation.
our Basel last year, but you wouldn't know that.
oh,
Well, I think at the very least you like make it a goal to come next year, and at the very least
yeah.
you network and you come and you introduce yourself and do whatever you need to do so that one day you will be the biggest podcast of Basel, whether that's next year or in 5 years, whatever. But that's the cool thing is like the opportunity is not lost, and it just gets better every
Yes.
year. So it's a blessing in disguise that it didn't happen this year because it's just setting you up for more success in the next years to come.
Agreed. I love it. I love that optimism mindset thinking. I want to, Emily, move us into our rapid fire segment. Parker and I have a couple random questions we want to throw
Ooh,
at you.
fun.
First thing that pops into your mind, we want to hear. You've partnered with some incredible brands already, but is there a dream brand that you want to partner with still?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely like beauty brands. I would love to work with a big airline because I love travel and I feel like I've been like born and raised traveling. My parents are the biggest travelers, so like a big airline like Delta would be awesome. Even the car brands, like I'm such a car girl. Like I would love to like partner with Ford and drive a Bronco or like a Defender or whatever. And then
Nice.
beauty side, there's a lot of beauty brands that I have yet to be on their radar. Rare Beauty, Charlotte Tilbury, all of those. So yeah, like it looks like I have everything, but I don't. There are definitely big brands that I would love to work with for sure.
I love it. Everyone has to have those goals. I
For
think it's
sure. And
important.
there's always
And
going
we
to be
have
a
some
goal.
connections at some of those places. So and this
Oh,
is why
hell
we're doing
yeah.
podcasts.
I
So
love
we
it.
can connect you.
I love it.
So this podcast is probably going to be released in 2025, but obviously
Cool.
we're still in 2024. I'm curious, maybe this is rapid fire or not. What's a trend you're pumped for that you see coming in 2025 that Elevation Nation should know about?
Ooh, God, I gotta think about this. I think like video content isn't really going anywhere. So like pushing Elevation Nation on social media, like TikTok, really like showing your personalities. I think short form video content and long form is only getting bigger and better as far as trends. Is something that I'm challenging myself to do more. I was kind of anti TikTok because I thought I was too old for it, and now I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna like lean in. And I feel like I talked myself on camera into a black hole. So like for me, I've been trying to like show more love to my beauty clients that send me PR and do unboxings weekly on TikTok. So I think short form and long form video, while it is kind of a trend right now, it's just going to become a bigger trend and something we all need to hop on board with for sure.
Parker is trying to also go viral on TikTok, not for our company, which is pretty effed up, but for his own side hustle where he does Parker in the park and he goes to
Oh my God, I
Central
love
Park and
it.
films people in the park. So he's certainly
just
on the
films
content
people,
game.
but
I
like
support
we're,
that. And it's a domino effect. So the second you go
yeah,
viral,
it's
people will
hard
come to
though.
Elevation Nation. It
There we
is
go. I'll
hard.
take it.
It's very hard.
All right. Our last rapid fire for you, Emily. Parker mentioned that he loves to read. You can see behind him, he has all his books there, and we're always trying to find new books for Elevation Nation. Do you have a book recommendation for us?
Okay, I'm like I love reading, but I go through like waves of it. So like over the summer, my Goodreads is insane, and then I could not tell you the last time I picked up a book, to be honest, since it's been seasoned. But I really, really, really love like my favorite book ever is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's pretty common, I feel, and they're making a movie out of it. I
Okay.
love that book, and I love the Frida McFadden series, The Housemaid. That was like the book series. There's three of them. It's just I love like a sexy thriller and like a relatively easy
Exactly what
read.
Parker was looking for, so that's perfect.
Well, I know
Yeah,
my
no, I'm not
wife has
reading like
read it.
any,
It's on there
I'm not
somewhere.
reading much literature, but I do love like I just when I'm reading, it's something that like I want to be able to like not put down, that kind of helps me escape and not think. But I love sexy thrillers. Verity, Colleen Hoover. Yeah, it's so good.
There you
It's so
go.
good.
That's
It's so
hilarious,
good.
Parker. I did not
It's
think
so good.
JJ would. That's funny. Okay, there you
It's
go.
so
Parker
good.
already has it.
And they just casted Sydney Sweeney in the movie, so like guys should get on
Oh,
board too.
there you go. Now we're gonna have to read it before we go see the
JJ's
movie.
tried to get me to like read some of her books. I can't do it. But
Really love The
she's been
Housemaid. It's
crushing
really
books.
it's yeah, no, those books I think I read The Housemaid in like 2 days.
I think JJ's read like 24 books this year, and I'm just like,
I love
jeez,
it. That's
she's
so
crushing it.
good.
Yeah,
That was my goal. I think I read 6.
You
Okay,
just
that's
need
still
more
good.
vacations on the
That's still
beach
good.
to read.
Yeah,
That's all I'm hearing.
I know. I'll do
I love
better.
it. All right,
All right,
Emily.
Emily.
Oh, go ahead, Parker. You're good. Take it
Okay.
away.
fair enough. It is Elevation Nation. We ask every single person this same question. Every elevator has a mental motto. That's a phrase, a quote, a slogan that you live your life by. Sam's got a motto. I got a motto. 180 plus other elevators have a motto. So, obviously, Emily, what's your mental motto?
My mental motto is trust the timing of your life. If I've learned
Mm.
anything in my life is it's all about timing and it always works out and happens when and how it should. So I literally tell myself that on repeat every single day.
I think that's a beautiful variation of our trust the process
Yeah,
discussion that
I
we've been
agree.
having throughout the podcast. And so
Yeah.
I love it. Emily, I'm so very grateful that we got connected with you. And on behalf of all of Elevation Nation that's listening, and Parker and myself, thanks for joining us. We're so excited to have you in the nation, and we know this is only the beginning for you.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
All right,
Thanks,
Elevation
Emily.
Nation. Until next week, peace.